Welcome back to My God, Why Can't I Do Anything on Time? In today's episode, I will be showing you how to easily clear the left side path of the X-Magica Alliance War Showcase, which I would deem the harder path of the two. This video will feature an overview of the path, MVPs, what team I used, and an in-depth walkthrough on how to do each fight with in-game footage of those fights. Like with the other one, this is not going to be short, so please follow the timestamps so you can get to what you need and not die in the meantime. Okay, cool, thanks. General notes and MVPs. Unlike the right side path where there were a lot more tactic defenders you had to go up against, each fight is a more unique challenge, which on one hand restricts the champions that you'll be able to use, but on the other doesn't automatically mean that you'll need to bring a tactic attacker for it. Anyways, I noticed an important team structure that goes as follows. I think that you will want to bring a Mystic Tactic Attacker, a strong Cosmic Champion, which everyone has Hercules, just use him, a Debuff Purifier who isn't Kingpin, for reasons I'll get into, and a Coverage Champion of your choice for whatever area you think you'll need the most support in. That was obviously how I structured my team, and so my MVPs goes as follows. I will once again be mentioning the uses of Kushala, as she absolutely pissed on the first 3 fights. She's awesome. She functioned perfectly as my X-Magica Mystic Champion. Next, I think the block of text speaks for itself. And I thought I'd mention Nick Fury because him being on the team, especially when he's dead, gives additional attack to hero champions, so I just thought that it'd be nice. Plus, he covers some of the fights on the left side, so yeah. If you follow that team building foundation, you really should be able to cover everything without much problem at all. As for how my run went, you can already guess 3 of my team members. I used Kushala, Hercules, Nick Fury, and Moleman, and I didn't use any boosts whatsoever. I like to try and make these things realistic to those who don't have deep endgame rosters. So even with lower ranked champions, you can just boost up and have a similar output if you follow my steps. Anyways, the aforementioned Kushala pissing did occur on the first 3 fights. I could have used Hercules on Lady Deathstrike, but I just wanted to try Kushala to get the footage for it. On Iron Man Infinity War, I used Hercules. My god, that fight was irritating, but Herc is Herc, so he got it down without dying. For Spot, I used Nick Fury. I didn't want to use Moleman, even though he was probably the better option for the fight, but it was just because if Nick Fury died, my other champions would get additional attacks, so I thought, if any one of them dies first, it might as well be Nick Fury, but I soloed. Then I did Void with Moleman, Shuri with Hercules. I died once, the Assassin Mastery kicked in. I don't agree with it. I don't want to count it, but I don't want to lie. Anyways, so I swapped... Anyways, after that, I swapped out Moleman for Black Cat, and I did the lion's share of thing with Black Cat, and only needed to use 1 revive. If I do say so myself, clearing this path unboosted and in 2 revives shows that it's a pretty decent strategy and is very cheap to get some good rewards. With all that being said, let's get into the explanations for each fight, as well as some footage of me taking them. Though I would like to disclaim that if you saw my last video, you may notice that the voice clips I used are the same for the shared fights. That's because I'm on a time crunch. I'm sorry, I gotta get this out as soon as I can. I'll put in an editor's note if I deem it necessary. Okay, thanks, love you, bye. The first champion we'll be up against is Cosmic Ghost Rider. He is a tactic defender, therefore there is no reason to not use a tactic attacker for him. If I were to guess what the ideal tactic counters would be, I'd say champs like Sorcerer Supreme, Black Widow Clairvoyant, Hood, Magic, and Scarlet Witch, though many more will work. This isn't a particularly niche fight. So in terms of what to know, by far the most important thing to keep in mind is never, under any circumstances, let him use his heavy attack or his special 2. You will degen and most likely die. Just don't do it. Like, that is the crux of the fight. But additional points to know are that you are heal blocked, so don't use recoils, and you can better manage your X-Magica prowess that removes the indestructible charges by parrying hits of his special 1 rather than dexing all 3 projectiles. Now on to how you should handle the fight. To help prevent his near insta-death degen, only ever let him use special 1s, and don't hold block while he's near you because that will motivate him to charge a heavy, and again, we do not want him doing that. Only ever block to parry. Other than that, you'll be wanting to acquire as many X-Magica prowess as you can get because you will be dexing hits of his special 1, and that consumes them. You can easily stack these by hitting his block with light attacks. Then lastly, for some fancier stuff, try to parry at least 1 projectile hit on his special 1. I found the easiest way to do this was to dex the first one, parry the second one, then dex the third one, though you can do it in any kind of order you want. You could parry all 3, you could dex all 3, it doesn't matter. It's just your prowess will get eaten up very quickly if you only dex his hits. Then just use your attacker the way they're meant to be used whilst still following those guidelines and you'll get him down. Next up is Lady Deathstrike, who isn't a tactic defender, but you will definitely want a counter for her. The reason why, as you can see, is this bitch heals, so you're going to need a way to deal with her regen. Thankfully, there are a variety of methods you can use, including not using buff-heavy champs, having nullify or armor break, strong damage over time, etc. I would say the ideal X-Magica counters for her would be Kushala, Sorcerer Supreme, Black Widow Clairvoyant, Longshot, and Void, though I didn't have the best time using him. What to know for the fight is, again, she heals. The biggest sources of her regen will be when you either gain buffs or use a special while she has an armor up buff active. So you'll need to be mindful when gaining buffs, which includes the precision from using dexterity, and be mindful about using special attacks. Another thing to note is that she has a 25% chance per armor up buff to go unstoppable when you use a special. That's why sometimes when you fight her, she just goes unstoppable for no reason when you use a special. There's a chance. Regarding her regen, the gaining buffs part is pretty self-explanatory. Just avoid doing that unless your champion's kit counters the nullify from buffet. As for the special attacks, you have multiple ways of going about this, including not using special attacks, armor breaking her, or nullifying her armor up buffs. So pick your poison as to how you'll deal with that. Now, what to do when you're in fight? Firstly, follow through with whatever countering method you're using, whether that is armor break, nullify, using damage over time, ability accuracy reduction, just using high damage output champs because that does work, etc. You've picked your poison, now you need to drink it. Next, I'd say it's pretty easy to get trapped in the corner, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. You can avoid this by just hitting her block a lot and pushing her into the corner. Lastly, since dexing her hits will give you a buff, unless you have a champion that counters that, you don't want to dex her hits. Dash back when you're further away, it's pretty easy to do as her attacks have long range to them, and continue following through. First up on the left side chopping block is Vision Arcus, the only tactic defender here, and you will need a counter for him. Guess what that counter is? It's a tactic attacker. I think most Mystic champs here would get the job done due to the X-Magica tactic, however, I'd say the ideal options would be Kushala, Sorcerer Supreme, Dragon Man, Longshot, Hood, and I'm also going to throw in Colossus and Iceman as they are immune to either Armor Break or Cold Snap. What to know for the fight? I'd say the most important thing, even more important than AARKUS 101, is that tactic attackers reduce ability power rate by 20% per X-Magica prowess on them, up to 100% completely shutting it down. And since the nodes really want to give him power and really want to prevent you from taking it under normal circumstances, that's pretty useful. That's why you want a tactic attacker. I should add that the node prevents neutralize from working, so I'm sorry Wiccan users, you may have a harder time than normal here. Ability accuracy reduction as well, so it's not like you could just Archangel all of the ability accuracy away from him. And of course, AARKUS 101, if he has a power gain buff and you stay close to him for a while, he will put an armor break on you and thus a cold snap whenever you are near him. If you are able to shut down any part of that, you'll be fine, but even if you can't, it's not that big of a deal. So what to do for the fight? Pretty simple. Bring a tactic attacker and beat his block until you have 5 or more X-Magica prowess. Then you just want to try and maintain as many of those tactic prowesses as possible so the power gain never becomes an issue and then you can just hit him until he dies. A way to try and maintain those prowess would be from parrying hits of his specials rather than dexing them, as that eats up your prowess. Then following the whole AARKUS 101 thing, if you are not using a champion who shuts down his cold snap BS, then follow Fighting AARKUS 101. And that is simply to not stay close to him for a long enough period of time to get the armor break on you. Just go in, hit him a couple times, dash back, go in again, and you'll be fine. You'll see me do that with Kushala, who does not shut down any of his abilities, and I never get a cold snap on me even once. So you don't need an AARKUS counter for this, you just need a tactic attacker. Next up, a total troll fight. Iron Man Infinity War. No, he is not a tactic defender, and no, you don't need a hard counter, you just need to know what to do, but bringing a strong cosmic champion will really ease the pain, I think. Anyways, what to know? Know that you will most likely be annoyed. There's a lot of garbage going on here that just wants to prevent you from doing anything, so yeah, you need to know how to work around it. And luckily, I am here to supply you with multiple ways to work around it. Aw, aren't I so nice? The easiest workaround for that is equipping a relic on your goddamn champion, because you can use that for an easy opening into a heavy, knock him down, so you can fulfill the ebb and flow purpose. A useful skill is being able to re-parry, as his medium hits are non-contact, therefore under most circumstances you cannot parry them. So if you can parry his light attacks, that way you will be able to heavy him and complete the ebb and flow motive. Or ebb and flow objective, should I say. Speaking of that, champions who can parry non-contact hits will make this fight a lot less annoying. You see, the biggest pain point in this fight is that he has unstoppable heavy attacks, so if you can just parry his mediums right from the gate, you will never need to worry about that. So I'd say a champion like Angela would be amazing for this. Other good traits for your champion to have, as there are many different ways you can approach this, are champs who can spam specials so you can complete the ebb and flow objective without worry, auto block bypassers because he sure does have auto block in his kit, and armor break champs so you can shut down his 15% power gain bullshit. As to what you should do for this fight, I will give you advice as if you have no counter whatsoever. The two biggest problem points will be getting in knockdown openings and dealing with him once he hits 15% health. So, knockdown openings, you can play the reparry roulette. It will not always work. He may just start throwing heavies the second he gets the chance to, but, you know, sometimes it'll work. You can use specials for an easy knockdown. Bonus points if you have already knocked him down, you still have the Fury, and it's just about to expire when you use your special. So, knocking him down from the special gives you another Fury, so you don't have to wait it out. Ideally, you would like as much uptime of the ebb and flow Fury as possible, so using your specials when it's about to expire will help enable that. I will mention it again. Relics. You can just easily intercept with them and get your knockdowns in. Lastly, this is a little bit advanced and not guaranteed, but for the tryhards out there, even though his heavies are unstoppable and you're not supposed to be able to counter them, there is a small window of time where you can. If you wait just until the heavy is right about over, by the time you release your heavy, the unstoppable will have just expired and you'll be able to knock him down. Again, it's not guaranteed and it's a bit tricky, but if you either A, have a safety net, or B, are about to die and you just need to give it a go, you know what to do. Now for his painful ending phase when he reaches 15% health. What you'll want to do is first wait out his initial period of armor up. He'll be gaining a ton of power, spamming his specials, just wait until they expire and he won't be gaining power anymore. Then once that's done, you can try and sneak in hits. He may gain additional armor ups and start gaining power again and will be auto-blocking you. So if you have no counter for that, I think what you could do for reliable damage is to use a relic, which will stun him, knock him down with a heavy, you get the ebb and flow Fury, and then you use your special 3, so you'll be dealing extra damage. You probably wouldn't need to do that more than twice to get him down with most champions. But ideally, someone on your team will have some way to make this 15% period less annoying. And yeah, you essentially rinse repeat. When he has armor, wait until it's gone, and then try and hit him again. I would like to clarify though, see, I used Hercules so I didn't need to worry about this, but when he auto-blocks you, his parries will stun you. So when you sneak those hits in, you will only want to be using heavy attacks or special attacks. If you use basic hits, he will have a chance of getting an armor up, and he will be able to parry you that way. Yeah, you can see my Herc footage here. It took a long time because he was being an absolute bastard, but once the immortality kicked in, we got past that real quick. See, I'm not worried about this fight for the majority of you because at this point, who does not have a 6-star maxed out Hercules? So yeah, you have him, you'll be fine. On to our first science defender, Spot. He is not a tactic defender, but you really should have a counter for him. That counter being a debuff purifier. So what you should know for the fight is that Spot being constantly unblockable is not a good time. The magic number to keep in mind is 3. 3 debuffs and he will be unblockable until you have none. So debuff purifiers are your friend. Kingpin isn't completely impossible to use in this case because when the attacker, when you purify a debuff, you will also go unblockable. So it's not too unmanageable, but Kingpin having his rage debuffs count as debuffs can be a bit of an issue. Because Spot will also be unblockable until all the debuffs purify into the overpower buff. Anyways, next up in what to know is that Spot's untouchable isn't fun either. The magic number is 5. 5 of his portal block charges, you do a regular hit into him, and the untouchable begins, the instant rupture damage begins. Oh yeah, get ready for it. And therefore, miscounters, or champs who do not take tons of damage from rupture, they'll help you out here. You see, I used Nick Fury for this fight, and he deals with both of the problem points, so he is a great option here. As for what to do, just use a champ that purifies debuffs, or, maybe a champ like Archangel who could shut down the node might work. And remember that 5 is Spot's magic number, so if you do not have an untouchable counter, be prepared for what will happen when you hit him once he's at 5 charges. If you don't have a miscounter, what I would recommend is that you parry him, hit him once, you will get some rupture damage on you, but it won't be too bad, and then you just wait out the untouchable. And last up for our left side shenanigans is Void. He is not a tactic defender, but I would say he is one of the most hard counter required defenders in this entire quest. You will need a debuff purifier, one who is not Kingpin. As we've mentioned, Kingpin has the rage debuffs, and debuffs are not your friend when fighting Void. Kingpin will not work here. That leads pretty conveniently into what you should know about the fight, as Void 101, debuffs are not your friend. The way that the nodes impact that is that every time Void gets to a bar of power, you will get a Power Sting debuff on you, so you know what that means. The other node interaction is that this Void is a gluttonous bastard, and he will eat your buffs and gain more power, which then gets him to more bars of power, i.e. more Power Sting debuffs on you. What an inconsiderate gentleman. Anyways, what to do? Use a hard counter. Straight up. Just use a champ who can deal with debuffs. If that champion of choice purifies debuffs manually rather than automatically, for example, Nick Fury needing to knock the enemy down in order to purify, you'll need to know when the debuffs will go on you so you can prepare and have your required input ready to purify them. In this case, it's knowing that 1, whenever Void gains a bar of power, you will get a Power Sting debuff on you, and the Void 101 information of there is a timer, and when it expires, a debuff will start to generate on you, and once you reach a combo interval of 10, 1 debuff will be removed. So have your Purify ready for either of those circumstances. The only other thing I think is worth noting is to not be reckless when giving him power because of the Power Snack node. If you're pushing him above 2 bars of power without even thinking about it, and then you dex a hit or your champion gains a buff naturally, well, he's eaten that, and now you have a special 3 on your hands to deal with. I wouldn't recommend it, so just be careful. Power management. I just want to add that I used Moleman here, who I think is a very good counter for the fight. And I didn't want to activate Frenzy until I felt confident I could nuke him down before dying, because once Moleman goes into Frenzy, he can no longer purify. So it did indeed come pretty close, but I managed to get him through some luck and some nice AI manipulation. But if you boost up and you have a similarly high-ranked Moleman, you'll be fine. You'll have gotten him down well before then. I was pretty proud of how cool that went, though. It was a nail-biting finish. Time for Shuri, who isn't a tactic defender, nor do you need a hard counter because this is an incredibly generic fight. Ideal tactic counters, I would just say bishop, 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 bishop. Pretty much any champ will work though as long as they follow the following parameters. Those being, you don't want to use champs who inflict a lot of debuffs or where debuffs are integral to their kit, and you generally don't want to be using champs who can't handle a good hit on their block or two because she will be having like prowess punctures if you repeat combo hits, which is going to happen. So yeah, but really anyone works. Just don't use champs who are heavy on debuffs. And I made a mistake here, which I'm actually glad about because knowledge is power. I went in with Kushala first thinking that, oh, because X-Magica prowess prevents the purify, then the conflictor, she won't purify my incinerates. Yeah, no, that only works for tactic defenders, so don't think just because you're using a tactic attacker, you can counter the conflictor node. That won't work. Don't do what I did. Anyways, what to do for the fight is simply know how to fight Shuri. She has non-contact hits, so you can't parry stun her unless you have a champ who counters that, and you'll want to know how her untouchable works. When she has 10 of those passive armor charges and she charges a heavy, she will go untouchable, meaning you need to have a miss counter, otherwise you'll just hit right into nothing and she'll counter you. Now last, though certainly not least, the Thing Boss. Jesus Christ, this Thing Boss. He is a tactic defender and you will sure as shit need a hard counter for him. Unfortunately, when it comes to tactic attackers, the only ideal counter is Wiccan. That's it. He's the only one, though other options that will work decently well are Kushala, Werewolf if you play him like Valkyrie, and Void. I don't know if I'm just terrible or something, but this fight was infinitely harder than everything else I had dealt with up until this point. However, what you need to know for this fight is very basic. You make a decision and you deal with it. You either 1. Manage the defense tactic without using a tactic attacker, you manage things rock stacks without using an unstoppable counter, or 3. You have to be good at using Wiccan, or at least not as terrible as I am. The other thing to know is that this hooligan will deal so much damage on your block. Look, I know that the node says it gains additional attack for each buff on them, but even when I got rid of his buffs, he was still dealing ridiculous quantities, so I can't explain it to you. Just know that, please. And again, what to do for the fight is very simple. You've picked your poison, now you need to drink it. And unless you've got solid skills, or I'm just terrible, be prepared to spend a few revives on this fight. Every other fight on this path is easily soloable. I would say this is the only exception. So boost up. Try and save yourself some resources, please. If your poison of choice is to use a champ who counters Thing, but not the defense tactic, what you should know is the following. There is a timer, and every time it expires, Thing will get an indestructible passive. The only way to get rid of it is to parry. He will also gain an indestructible passive every time you dex one of his hits, so you do not want to do that. For this reason, you do not want to get trapped in the corner either. You're pretty much dead at that point. Unfortunately, since you are not an X-Magica attacker, you cannot stack charges to remove the indestructibles automatically. You just have to parry each time one comes up. However, his indestructibles stack though, so if you just dex, you are fucked. It is so hard to get rid of it since you can't stun him because he's a final boss. Yeah, it's tricky, but it's also tricky to use an X-Magica attacker and just not have a counter for Thing. So what you will want to keep in mind if you go that route, which I'm assuming most people will, is that you will want to get Thing to 15 rock stacks and have him use a special attack. You will want to time it so he reaches 15 while he still has enough power to use a special attack. You don't want to make it so he's almost at 15 and he barely has any power. You basically want to keep doing that while using your attacker how they're meant to be used and trying to get a good stack of X-Magica prowess to make sure that the indestructibles never become a problem. It sounds straightforward, but it's easier said than done when this bastard is stun immune. Or you just are good at using Wiccan. Like I said earlier in the video, I tried again just to test more counters against him, and I had by far the best luck by using Black Cat. I don't know much about her, so forgive me if the following information isn't 100% accurate. I'm on a time crunch to get this out. But Intercepting or using a heavy attack will swap where her card is, whether it's on her or thing, and you just want to use a special 2 while the card is on you, and then it gives him this sabotage debuff, I believe it is, which kind of just destroys his ability accuracy, and he won't be gaining rock stacks, he won't be going unstoppable, and you can deal a ton of damage to him through hitting him while he has that sabotage debuff up. I think it still works even when you hit him on block. She is a phenomenal thing counter. She's not a tactic attacker, but given that I had never used her before, and I almost got the solo, especially considering how miserable of a time I had when using the other X-Magica champs for him, Black Cat is very good for this. You can definitely solo with Black Cat. You could also use various other thing counters that you have highly ranked and are confident in using. Just keep the defense tactic in mind. Future Vol popping in while the rest of the Black Cat video is going on. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. It is very late in the night, so much so that it's early morning. I have been working on this for a very long time, so I hope that you like it. I don't know how to make videos. I am slightly stupid, so bear with me while I learn, and while I learn to do things on a proper schedule. Yeah, sorry for being late again, and you will see more from me soon. Some spider footage, perhaps. Get ready.